When I came to Romemu in 2012, yes, this is the longest time I've held a job. One of the first things I noticed is that people who would come here for the first time would sit here, right here in this room, and feel like they found home. And they would cry their way through services. I was so moved and inspired to find a synagogue where prayer could provide that sense of home and a safe place to cry. I'd never really seen a synagogue like that before, and I've seen many. Last night, after Thanksgiving dinner, a friend of mine told me, when I told her about the theme of this sermon, that growing up, she could never cry at home because she never felt safe enough to do so. I wondered if growing up, she ever felt at home. And she didn't. Ironically, she grew up in a home that wasn't home. Maybe home is the place where we feel safe enough to cry. On this day after Thanksgiving, when so many of us were home with family, or maybe in other people's homes, feeling comfortable or not, feeling joy or maybe pain, or maybe both, feeling safe or not, free or not, I wonder about this place we call home. And I wonder about the place of the human cry. One of the most heartbreaking cries in all of Tanakh, all of Torah, occurs in this week's biblical portion, Toldot. And that cry occurs at home, in the context of family dynamics. When Isaac, the aging and blind father of twins, Jacob and Esau, requests that his elder son Esau, I can never say this name in English, Esau, 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 okay, whatever. I'm just going to say it in Hebrew and you'll know who I'm talking about. Esav, bring him a meal of savory meat so that he could bless him with the blessing of the firstborn. For those of you who might not be familiar with the story, here's what happens. Rebekah, overhearing her husband's instructions to Esav, instructs her younger son, Jacob, to pretend that he's his older brother, so that he, and not his brother, receive the coveted blessing from his father. Sounds like a terrible plan. And it is a terrible plan, deceptive and destructive. But I think it's worth mentioning there are some mitigating factors here. There's a backstory. When Rebekah was pregnant with twins, as Chazan Basya was describing before, in her womb, there was this running, this churning, this struggling. Vayitrodzetsu habanim bikirba. God tells Rebekah through an oracle that the struggle in her womb presages an ongoing battle between her twins and their descendants, a mythic conflict in which the elder son would serve the younger. So she went into this with some awareness. And early on in the story, Jacob is sitting around eating lentils, and his twin brother comes in from hunting, famished, starving, and wants his lentils, and says, I am going to die, because Jacob wants to sell him the birthright, wants Esav to sell Jacob his birthright. He says, what good to me is a birthright? Hinei anochi holech lamut, v'lama ze li bechora. And so Esav sells his birthright to Jacob for a bowl of lentils And the Torah tells us that he spurns the birthright. Vayivez Esav et habechorah. So in this scene where Jacob pretends to be Esav, and he dresses up like his brother wearing goat skins on his arm, since his brother is hairier than him and he is smooth, and he brings his father's savory meat, pretending that he had just hunted for it. And even though his father is so clearly suspicious that it's not Esau before him, suspecting that it's Jacob, he still gives Jacob, the son before him, the blessing for the eldest. And this is where the cry comes in. Jacob exits the scene. Esau walks in. Hey, Dad, I hunted some meat for you and I prepared it just like you like it. And Isaac realizes and starts trembling. What have I done? I've given the wrong son my blessing. And when Esau realizes what happens, he cries out with an exceedingly great and bitter cry, saying to his father, "Bless me also, Father. V'yitzak se'aka gdola umara ad me'od. Vayomer la'aviv, parcheni gam ani avi." And then again, his heart-rending words, "Have you only one blessing, Father? Bless me also, Father." And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. "Habracha achati lecha avi, parcheni gam ani avi, vayisa Esau kolo vayefch." These words so heartbreaking. Is there only one blessing? Only one blessing that you have for me in this life? But I wonder also about Jacob's cry. Where's Jacob's cry? Where's Jacob's pain? Some of you might be thinking, who cares about Jacob's pain? He's the aggressor. He's the winner. He's the liar. He's the cheater. Nevertheless, Jacob is our namesake. He is the one that becomes Israel, Yisrael. He is the one who wrestles with an angel. He is our great God wrestler. His humanity, his pain should not be eclipsed. Even though he does such terrible damage to his family, I care about his pain, about his humanity. Like it or not, he is us and we are him. We are Israel. So maybe we can open ourselves up to his pain, to his humanity. Imagine what these family dynamics did to him. Think about the fact that he loses his home as a consequence of those dynamics. And maybe most damaging for him, he lies about his identity in order to get the blessing. He's blessed not as the person he is, but as the person he isn't. So where is Jacob's pain? Where is his cry? Maybe there's no room for it because he's in survival mode. He hears from his mother that his brother wants to kill him, and he runs away from home. This Ish Tam, as the Torah tells us, this pure, innocent man, this Yoshev Ohalim, this one who sits at home all day, has to come to terms with the fact that he has caused such terrible damage to his family. He's inflicted harm. Maybe he can't take it in because of his own guilt. And of course, he's in survival mode. What can we feel when we're in survival mode? I remember when my own daughter was deathly ill. Thank God she's okay now. But I was completely in survival mode. My friends would say to me, "Come, I'll take you out, we'll have a drink, you'll cry on my shoulder." And I'd say, "No, I can do one thing right now, is help my daughter survive." I was so afraid that if I felt anything, I would not be able to get up the next morning and do what I had to do. So Jacob is in survival mode. He runs away from home. He leaves Canaan, the promised land, And he runs away, paradoxically, to his mother's hometown, Haran. And there he encounters Rachel, his future bride, at a well. And that's when he lifts up his voice and he cries. He finally cries. Why is it at this moment, in this place, that he finally cries? The ancient rabbis ask the same question in a midrash. And they say, Jacob wept because in a moment of prophecy, he saw that Rachel, his beloved, would not be buried with him in the cave of Machpelah. All right, I guess on some level that makes sense. He cries over his beloved wife's tragic early death on the road back to Canaan, back home. She never reaches home. And she would not be buried with him in the family plot. In a sense, she would remain forever in exile from him, from her children. That she would not finally go home. A more recent commentator, the 19th century German rabbi and modern Orthodox philosopher, Samson Raphael Hirsch, says that Rachel reminded him of his mother, Rebecca, and that he simply missed his mother. Well, that makes emotional sense. Having run away from home, he's in such grief. He misses his mother, the one that connected to him, the one that loved him so unconditionally, the one that advocated for him, the one that wanted him to have the coveted blessing of the eldest. But I think if we look closely at how the Torah describes Jacob's cry at this moment, we discover something else. The words, and he cried, Vayisa kolo vayef, are the precise words used to describe his twin brother Esau's cry. Upon discovering that his blessing had been stolen. So perhaps it's here, by a well of love, encountering Rachel, falling in love, that he feels safe for the first time since that terrible day when he shattered his brother. He now senses the possibility of love, the promise of a future, of building a home. Jacob moves beyond survival mode in this moment and feels safe enough to feel his brother's pain. Finally, he can cry for his shattered twin brother. I wonder, in these times, where can we feel at home? Where is home? In so many conversations with family, acquaintances, I hear again and again in these days, I no longer feel at home. Do I have a place in this country? Maybe I want to leave this country. And so many people have never felt at home in this country. Indigenous people, people of color, immigrants, all kinds of people who have felt like strangers. And now, increasingly so, undocumented immigrants feel this sense of daily fear. Given these times, how can we find a home, feel at home? Where do we feel safe now? Where can we cry? Where can we feel? Where can we be who we are? Maybe we need to turn inward into those places that always felt home, even for our forefathers and foremothers, in prayer, in community, with God, in ourselves. Wherever it is, wherever you feel home, I think it's essential to drive a stake in the ground and call that place holy. And we have to remember that in turning inward to find home, we can't forget that the larger world also needs to be safe for people to cry and be themselves and feel at home. It all starts with finding home, with going home, with finding your well, feeling love and hope, finding a space to cry, finding a place for our sacred tears to flow, making space to hear and feel the human cry.